All right, let's get into the Commander stuff from today, because that'll be fun. We're not going to look at every Commander card from the day, because some of them are just like a card from a Commander set, like extremely wordy, overly complex for no reason. There's too much on the stupid card. Or they're just not very inspiring in terms of design some of the time. So I handpicked about 14 cards from the Commander stuff today that I thought looked cool. You know, I thought they might be good in a Commander deck, a casual setting, even kitchen table, or cube. Some of these I'm looking at for cube, like this first card, right here. I like white token generators in cube. I'm a fan of those. You know, I play Sacred Mesa and Pegasus Refuge in cube from time to time. And now we have Chivalric Alliance, which is just incredible. This compared to most other, white token generators, at least the ones I just named. And even compared to stuff like Dawn of Hope, which is my white token generator in the cube currently. This card, man, this is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Pay 2, discard a card, create a 2/2 white and blue knight creature token with vigilance. Am I nuts? Does this look great? Again, for cube and even casual play. I'm going to bring that up from time to time, because I think that's how the majority of people play, is just casually from time. Oh, this is a cool looking card. I think I'll pick one of those up, put it in my mono white deck or whatever. And I think for players like that, this is a card you want to be kind of looking at a little bit, because it's just really cool. White card draw has really come along. This is only 2 mana. You do have to skip an early turn for it, technically, to play it. Or you could play it on your turn 4, attack with 2 guys and immediately draw a card, and then maybe discard that card or some land in your hand to get a 2/2. This can have value on the table the turn it comes into play. So I don't know, man. I think that it's cool. Also, the flavor text is great. He's knighting this dragon. Wonderful. Or demon, whatever this is. But one way or the other, I keep my eye out for token generators like this. I keep an eye out for white card draw. I don't think this replaces Dawn of Hope in my cube, because, like I said in the video, one of the big reasons Dawn of Hope is in my cube is because I want 1 life gain payoff. And Dawn of Hope is that. So this doesn't replace it in that role, but I do like this a good bit for Commander, obviously. I think it's just a stacked card in Commander. I really do. But let's move on to Dance with Calamity. This is the worst card in terms of, actually, I don't want to cast it. I don't think I want to cast this card. But I just want to give props to whoever designed it. I really do. Because this is some of the coolest Magic design I've ever seen. 28 years of playing Magic. And this is some really cool design. And it's very red design too. You can't say it's not a Magic card, because this is very red. It's 7 in a red, 8 mana for a sorcery. Shuffle your library. As many times as you choose, you may exile the top card of your library. As many times as you choose, you may exile the top card of your library. If the total mana value of the cards exiled this way is 13 or less, you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. So you're kind of playing blackjack with yourself. Not in a naughty way. You're playing 21, right? You're just trying not to bust. Again, why does everything I say sound terrible? But you are just trying not to go over 13. So once you get to 10 mana, there's this do I do this? I might hit 2 more lands in a 3-drop. And that'd be, I can get 3 more cards out of this thing. Or I could rip a 5-drop off the top and lose all 8 of my mana, because if you exile more than 13 mana value, then you just cast this spell for nothing. So this is really well designed. I love the idea behind the card. I love that they made it work. They were able to price it correctly. I think this is the correct price. So I don't know, man. And obviously it's an Innistrad card because it says 13 on it. There's a lot of just really neat stuff about Dance with Calamity. And again, props on the design, if nothing else. But let's move on to yet another kind of cool little card. This is Elsas Talent. Now, there are 5 of these auras that enchant planeswalkers today, but this is my favorite. It is 4 mana, 2 and 2 white for an aura that enchants a planeswalker. Enchanted planeswalker has +1. Create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of enchanted planeswalker, creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance until end of turn. That's pretty good. If you can find a way to give creatures you control haste in some way, well, you're just putting 9 power on the table for +1 that you can swing with vigilance. Again, if you can give the tokens haste, but still, I like this as an idea. I don't think you should overdo it, but I like Planeswalker auras. I think that's just cool. I also think you're less likely technically, statistically really, so objectively, to get blown out when you play this aura, unless they have Fateful Absence, or, you know, specifically a thing that says kill that Planeswalker, which, for the time being, I imagine fewer people in Commander have. Although you might have things that say, you know, but Dreadbore or something. Well, Dreadbore is a sorcery, isn't it? You might have Bedevil or Destroy Target Permanent or something like that. So I'm not saying that people don't have ways to blow up Planeswalkers at instant speed, but I just feel like there are far, far fewer ways to interact with Planeswalkers at instant speed than there are creatures that you want to staple an aura to, right? So I just feel like you're less likely to get blown out doing this. And adding a +1 that does this, like the old Elspeth. I mean, it's old Elspeth +1. But adding a +1 that does this for 4 mana is, I mean, 4 mana, create 3/1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and plus your Planeswalker. That's not terrible in and of itself, in terms of like what you're getting for the raid. But this static ability, whenever you activate any loyalty ability of a Planeswalker, your dudes get a huge bonus. Like +2/+2 in vigilance is serious. And obviously, if you have any of those cards out that say you can activate the loyalty abilities more than once a turn, then this just gets like all the juice. You know what I mean? Like +4/+4. So I actually kind of like this a good bit. I like it more than all the other auras. Some of the other auras cost too much, like 5 mana. And then some of the other auras give the Planeswalker like an ultimate ability. You know, like -8 or -12, like the Teferi one. Teferi's Talent. It's 5 mana, so it costs what Teferi costs. You know, 3 and 2 blue. And it does what that 5 mana Teferi does. It enchants a Planeswalker. And it's whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty on the Planeswalker, and you can -12 to Teferi Ultimate from the 5 mana Teferi. So they all call back to Planeswalkers, and they all do stuff that their respective Planeswalkers do. That said, they all do it for either too much mana or too many loyalty, you know? The Liliana one looks kind of interesting, honestly, but because it's a 2 mana aura. But, you know, it's one of those where I don't think the extra value on it is that incredible. And also it makes an ultimate, which I don't really care that much about making an ultimate on a Planeswalker. I'd much rather have something like this. I just think this is like reasonably strong and finally gives people like a reason to play Planeswalkers in Commander, because most people don't do that. So, you know, let's move on to Excise the Imperfect. Boy, pay attention to this card. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 white rather. For an instant, exile target non-land permanent. There's a thing that can do it at instant speed. We're just talking about that with the Planeswalkers. Its controller incubates X, where X is its mana value. Now, yeah, you can at instant speed kind of trade one of your guys in. I want to point that out. If your opponent has shot your Atraxa with a removal spell, then you can exile your own Atraxa and incubate, you know, 7, which is not a bad trade. But mostly, I imagine this is going to be used like a Beast Within or a Polymorph or something like that, where you just get to exile anything ever that any opponent controls, ever, anything. It doesn't matter. And then they incubate, which is going to be like way worse than whatever permanent they ended up with. But this can be used both ways, and that's kind of nice. But this is a white card in Commander that is instant speed, costs a reasonable amount of mana, and says exile target non-land permanent. That means that it is a good card. It's a relevant card that you need to pay attention to. Just instant speed too. Like that's exile a non-land permanent, and then they have to pay more mana to incubate this. Get out of here! Like, I know it gives them a token, but like, so exile target non-land permanent is a line of text on this instant. So yeah, it's a good card. You know, but let's move on to Fireman Commando. This is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 4/3 Angel Soldier with flying. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Whenever another player attacks with 2 or more creatures, they draw a card if none of those creatures attacked you. Yeah, I have no idea where the set symbol is. I don't get why there's no set symbol on this there is on that. Okay, I just noticed that there's no set symbol on this, but it is a real card. It's officially spoiled. This doesn't, I can imagine reading this and be like, but it's yet more. First of all, it's an angel, which does matter, but it's yet more white card draw. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card is just a wonderful line of text. It's very, very good. But of course, whenever another player attacks with 2 or more creatures, they also draw a card, so long as they attacked you, which means that this card makes you kind of a beacon, right? It kind of puts the hot pepper in your hands, whatever that means. It makes it where people want to attack you, so they draw cards. So that's a little lame, but in the meantime, you get a 4 mana, 4 power flyer that also draws you cards. So I just thought this was, again, very cool design that I think might actually see some Commander play, but you got to be ready to be attacked. Really puts a plumb bob on your head if you play The Sims. Let's move on to Hedron Detonator. Oh, remember earlier when I was like, oh, this is one of my cards of the day about that 3 mana red guy? I was thinking about this guy. Truth be told, that guy was good, though. He's okay in limited. But this guy is the guy that I was actually thinking about. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Artificer. This line of text, are you ready for it? I'm going to say it to you. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Hedron Detonator deals 1 damage to target opponent. Oh, whew. Only way that could be better if it says each opponent, but it doesn't. No, we'll take target opponent. You can tap it and sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card the red way. Exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. Not flavor text is, but supposed to be funny. I'm not sure it quite hits the mark, but probably because of the different typefaces you have to employ, and it just doesn't look right. But anyway, enough about the flavor text. This is great, right? I hate, again, it's Commander. It should say each opponent, but ooh, in cube. Oh my goodness. I want that to go directly into my cube, buddy. And like, if I was playing casually, I'd love this card too. I love putting a bunch of little bitty artifacts into play, whether they're like 1-drop egg artifacts I can crack, or they're like treasure tokens, blood tokens, and stuff like that. I want to have this card in standard like so bad, dude. I want to have this card so bad in standard, but alas, it's in Commander. Boo, but still, I just like the card exists. This is the kind of stuff I like, baby. This is my stuff. But let's move on to Herald of Hoofbeats. I feel like someone in our chat called this, that there should be a knight that gives all the other knights horsemanship. That should be a thing, like in a Commander set. And somebody nailed it. If it was one of you, you nailed it. It's a 4 mana 3/3 with horsemanship. It means it can't be blocked except by creatures with horsemanship. And other knights you control have horsemanship. Awesome. So other knights you control can't be blocked. Other knights you control have shadow. It's kind of, the same thing. Just, ooh, that's a card, dude. That's a card. That's a good card. It's a cool card. Cool callback to horsemanship. It makes sense. Knights should have horsemanship. It just makes sense. I don't know why they haven't used this ability more often. Because it's intuitive. It makes sense as an ability. And even down to just the flavor of it, right? If the dude's on a horse and you're not, you can't block him. It'll just run over you. It makes sense. So, like, I don't know. I love this card exists, but it's weird that it took so long. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's in Portal 3 Kingdoms, the original ability. But we haven't seen it like since. That's not true. I think we've seen horsemanship on like uncards and stuff from time to time, but it is not an ability we see very often, say the least. It's cool that it's here. Nesting Dovehawk is next. I feel like this art is bigger than this. I feel like this art has been zoomed in significantly. But maybe it's just me. It looks odd, even though it is very good art. I just feel like there's more to it. This is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 2/2 bird with flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. Create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Nesting Dovehawk. Well, that's going to happen every single turn, isn't it? Look at that. As long as you have a single token out, you populate. Does this look really good to anybody else? I know it's 4 mana for a 2/2, so like not the greatest rate in the world, but it'll grow. Theoretically, it'll grow. But just this line of text, at the beginning of combat on your turn, populate, is that not kind of a disgusting line of text? Does anybody else clock it as a gross line of text? I think it might be a gross line of text. I'm pretty sure that's incredibly abusable. So Wanted to point this card out, but let's move on to Pain Distributor. What a name. This one's interesting too. 3 mana. I guess they all technically are to me. That's why they're in the video, but this is one of the more interesting cards to me, at least, that I pulled out from the set. 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/3 Devil Citizen with Menace. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, they create a treasure token. Whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Pain Distributor deals 1 damage to that player, and I'll remind you that tokens do touch the graveyard when they die. People fight me on that, but like it's right there in the rules. Tokens, when they die or get sacrificed or whatever, touch. I think that's even the term they use, touch the graveyard before they die, so that abilities like this will trigger. So this is great. Like you're giving your opponents ramp in kind of a group hug kind of way. It's a symmetrical effect. And sometimes those aren't the best, especially when if you play this on turn 3, they get to get their treasure tokens first, right? But I'm hoping that you don't do that. I'm hoping you play this on turn 4 along with a 1-drop and get a treasure token. That's how you probably want to play it. It doesn't have to be turn 4, right? You go like Soul Ring turn 1 and you can do this on 3 and play a spell. But in any case, I just think that this symmetrical effect is sweet. Sucks that it only happens, once a turn, but it is interesting that you can, play a guy and get a treasure token. And then on your next opponent's turn, you can play a spell and get another treasure token. You can do that. So I think that's kind of cool. But so it could end up in everyone having all the mana in the world like relatively quickly. And I kind of like that in a chaotic kind of way. But this ability, like, oh yeah, man, like I'm going to give you treasure tokens, but you're going to pay for them. I'm not, you will. And that seems okay. But I also imagine there's a terrible use case in here, like a floor on this, where you play it, everyone gets their treasures. Everyone gets their treasures. And then you untap, you get ready to make some treasures, and they just kill the guy at instant speed. And then they can start popping their treasures for free. There's also a use case where like it's been a few turns and everyone has 3 treasures or something like that. And then someone kills this so they can pop their treasures safely. Like that's going to happen too. But for the most part, I just think it's a pretty slick design and it's just I just think it's a very cool card. So let's move on to Shalai and Halar. Now, there were multiple mashups in the Commander spoilers that we got today, but I'm not going to look at all of them. I'm just going to kind of look at the ones that I like. And this one I think is kind of beautiful in its simplicity. This is a 4 mana, 1 in Naya colors, red, green, white, for a 3/3 legendary angel elf with flying and vigilance. Whenever 1 or more +1 counters, or +1/+1 counters, are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Halar deals that much damage to target opponent. That, I think, is disgusting. And it's, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that's kind of amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it sucks that it can only deal damage to opponents, but it only does damage to opponents because I'm fairly certain you could easily break this card if it could deal damage to creatures. That said, the fact that it deals damage to opponents, there have got to be tons of infinite combos with this. Just like all the combos that put like, what is it, persist? It's either persist or the opposite of persist. I always forget which one it is, but there's one, I think it is. Yeah, persist is the one where they have a normal thing. They just have a normal stat line, and then they come back. When they die, they come back with a -1/-1 counter. So not persist. It's the one that's the opposite of persist. They die and they come back with a +1/+1 counter, something like that. I forget what the mechanic is, but I think there are probably infinite combos with that, right? Where you just like burn all your opponents out of the game. So that has to be researched, I guess. But I feel like there have to be multiple infinite combos with this card to just win the game immediately in a game of Commander. But even if you're not doing that, like Undying is the +1/+1. Thank you. It's Undying. It's Undying. Ha ha ha. Yeah, Heliod, give this lifelink. Boom. That's infinite +1/+1 counters, is it not? Is it not? So, yeah, like the Heliod Walking Ballista combo, but I guess that already kills your opponents, right? It was already that. But still, you know, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this to probably end the game like on the spot, effectively, if you have the right like 3 cards out. So keep that in mind. But even if you're playing this card fair, it's just like kind of good, man. Like, it's just kind of good, you know? If you put like 2 or 3 +1/+1 counters on a creature in a turn, like whether it's because you have a planeswalker or some spell that puts counters on stuff, or everything for that matter. Like imagine if you had a pretty decent team and you played one of those spells that puts like 2 +1/+1 counters on all your guys. They typically cost a lot of mana, but there's like multiple iterations of this spell. And then suddenly you're just like, you're burning somebody for a freaking, like a lot of damage, dude. So, but even if all you have is like, you know, a creature that can tap to put a counter on something, or maybe a Luminar Gasmer that puts a counter on a thing, like you can have 2 or 3 of those things out and have like reliable counter generation every turn and just like be doing a lot of damage turn over turn. So I like this thing like a lot. I think it's cool. I think it's simple, and I like that about it. Easy to understand. It's intuitive, and we don't have like a ton of +1/+1 counter commanders. At least not as many as we should, especially in Naya, which are the colors that make counters. So I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool, and I like it a lot. Now let's look at, is this the last card of the day? Is it? Oh, there's apparently another one after this. But let's look at Uncivil Unrest. This is 5 mana. This could potentially been around the cats too long. Potentially be cubable. This is 5 mana, 4 and a red for an enchantment. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. They enter the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. If a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. What a cool card, man. Like 5 mana is a lot. It's obviously a lot of mana. But this is a really good effect, so it has to cost a good amount of mana, you know what I mean? And I just think it's a cool commander card. That's what it's for. It's commander set, right? So, I better not see anybody in the comments like, oh, commander card. Like, yeah, it's what it says, commander set. It's fine. So, this is where they go, you know. But I just love both lines of text on this card. Both lines of text are awesome. It's just really, really cool. What else can I say? But like, if I was playing on a kitchen table, I'd want to try this card out. If I was playing Commander, I want to try this card. If I'm playing Cube, I kind of want to slip it in and see if it's broken. You know what I mean? I honestly think it's kind of cool. Yeah, Modified Matters. Cool deck. Actually is a cool deck. But we'll move on to Voldalian Wave Knight. Ooh, there's another one after this. The Voldalian Wave Knight is 4 mana. It's 2, a white, and a blue for a 3/3 Merfolk Knight. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on each other Merfolk and or Knight you control. Neat! Right? Like, it's 4 mana for an Anthem. It's just a 3/3 too. And it does say each other. It doesn't get +1/+1 counters, which is super lame. But first of all, I think I've gotten all my complaints out of the way. This has awesome creature types. It has awesome art. It's just so cool. She's riding a seahorse. Do you get it? But so, card has awesome art. And I love that, by the way, we didn't get an invasion of Svelian. We didn't get that. Did they invade Svelian? I don't think so. I mean, I guess this is what happened in Svelian, isn't it? Whenever you draw a card is busted because you can draw, multiple cards a turn, but this basically puts a +1/+1 counter on each of your guys every single turn, no matter what, which I think is cool, obviously. But if you draw more cards, which is not hard to do, especially with Merfolks, because there's plenty of Merfolk that draw cards in one way or another, Silvergill Adept and stuff, draws a card when it ETBs. So not too hard to draw Merfolk, and like all of a sudden you're getting 3 +1/+1 counters on all your dudes like every turn. It's not hard to imagine. So this card is actually very, very good, even though the mana cost looks a little bit stiff, But we'll move on to, oh my god, Wand of the World Soul. This thing looks so cool, guys. 3 mana, again, kind of beautiful in its simplicity. It's 2 and a white for an artifact that enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a white, or you can tap it to give the next spell you cast this turn Convoke. Okay, like, depending on what your board state is, especially in Commander, like, this basically is you could look at this as the ultimate mana rock. The next spell you cast this turn is free. Tap, cast a free spell. That's, if you don't want to tap any of your guys, at least it taps for white. But we don't really like 3 mana rocks in Commander, especially that only tap for 1 mana. We want like Coalition Relic and stuff like that. Chromatic Lantern, those are the good ones. But this has just creates a white mana, 3 mana rock ain't good. But this line of text is potentially like super busted, man. Like any spell in your deck potentially has Convoke, and that's pretty good. Pretty all right, man. But let's look at Wildfire Awakener. This is the final card of this Commander run of cards here. I thought this was really neat. This is 3 mana plus X. It's 1 red X, excuse me, 1 red, white, and X for a 3/2 human wizard with Convoke. When Wildfire Awakener enters the battlefield, create X/1/1 red elemental creature tokens with. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to target player. So you're not making Tims, not really, you're not making Prodigal Sorcerers, but you're making like the next best thing. And I love that about this. It could just be a 3 mana 3/2. That's not how you want to play it, but if you absolutely have to like block next turn, you'll do that. But still, I like that the Convoke. I love X spells that have Convoke. I just, tap as many guys as you want. Go for it. It plays really well into itself, by the way. It plays well with other Convoke stuff. But it plays really well with itself. After you have one copy in play that made a couple of elementals, then you can convoke those elementals, deal damage to your opponent, to cast another one that makes even more elementals and, deal more damage and stuff. When they attack, they deal damage, guaranteed. That's really good. So I just like this little guy. This is another dude that I might try in Cube. I already told you during the Cube video that I have trouble finding like good Boros legends that I like for the Cube that have like the right power level. I don't want Winota in the Cube, but I also want like actual decent Boros cards. And I feel like in my Cube, each gold color, each guild gets 3 cards. And I feel like Boros is lacking a little bit. And I think this might get dropped in, man. It's just such a cool card. So scalable. The X can be mana. The X can be creatures. So it doesn't matter if you're in a tokens deck or not. You can still cast it. On enough mana, this can just win the game. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. This dude looks really, really cool to me. And there's not often that I see a Boros legend that I truly love, because they tend to be focused a lot around combat, or they have this like military-esque theme that I'm just like, I don't really go for. It doesn't do it for me. But this guy, this is the kind of Boros legend that I can really get behind. I like this dude a lot. So just wanted to say that. I think he's cool. Now, there's a bunch of other cool like Commander cards from today, but these are just like the 14 that I thought kind of looked the coolest, So I hope you're into it. If there's any cards I didn't mention, make sure you bring them up in that comments section. YouTube watchers, Twitch chat, stay with me for a minute after the YouTube outro again. But because we got to raid somebody, I got to tell you good night and all that stuff. But in any case, and we got to, I guess, talk about this set for the last sort of time before we get into making decks and stuff. But although I will say next Sunday, I should probably put this in the YouTube video. This coming up Sunday, so I guess it'll be technically Easter Sunday. Late that night, when I say late, I mean probably 8 to 9 p.m. We're going to be streaming on Sunday, and we're going to be doing the full set review. It's a speed run. We didn't do it for the last set, but often we try to speed run reviewing every single card in a set. I've got to rest my voice for that, practice a little bit. But that's in case you're excited about that, or that's a thing that we do that you like. That Sunday's stream is going to be the full set review. Every single card. So get ready for that. Twitch.tv/SBMTGDef. In any case. Yeah, that's it for the YouTube stuff. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. But in any case, let me know sort of like what your favorite cards from the Commander product are so far, because I'm not much of a Commander player. I'm trying to dip my toes into it, but just reading Magic cards kind of gets me jacked. It makes me want to play some Commander, makes me want to slip stuff into my cube like this. It makes me just want to like order a copy or two of this, make a Boros like kitchen table deck and play against a couple of buddies, right? So there's a lot of ways we play Magic, and some of these cards make me want to play them all of those ways. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, shout out anything that I didn't bring up in the comments section if you like some of the other Commander cards that we've seen so far. But it's all the mom Commander stuff that I wanted to bring up at this point. So I guess with that in mind, I'm donezo for this one. So just like the video, share it around the social medias and stuff. I mean it. Do it. No one does it. Do it. It really helps. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. Because, top 25, top 10 sleepers, spend $5 on the set, deck techs, it's all coming. You want to make sure you get notifications for that. So sub, hit the bell. I know nobody does that on YouTube for the last 5 years, but it would mean a lot if you did it this once. But aside from that, I guess I actually am done, and I'll let you go. I am Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards, and thanks for a great spoiler season for that matter. But I love you. In any case, I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.